Websites like this are really cool. They give you an idea and a glimpse of how your favorite players see the game and how they control it. But these numbers and this spreadsheet don't quite tell you the full story. If I've learned anything from my thousands of hours playing Counter-Strike before Valorant was even an idea or an alpha, it's that copying settings like this don't ever work out. They're a good baseline when you start out. Don't get me wrong. If you have zero experience in any FPS game, you never played Apex, you never played CS, you never played anything of the sort, sure, it can give you an idea of where you want to be. You don't want to be at like 3,000 DPI at 4 in-game, right? That's ridiculous. But copying a player's settings word for word, bar for bar, is not a good idea. And there's many reasons for it that I want to talk about today. And it can start with how you physically move your arm and your wrist when you play the game. I know this is a very crude setup, but stick with me for a second. If you're a wrist player, right? Generally, people who just primarily play with their wrist, this is how I kind of played Counter-Strike, play on a higher sensitivity because, you know, they need to. They don't have as much space or much wiggle room, if you will. People who play with their arm a lot play on a much lower sensitivity because they're moving a lot more, right? Really, where you want to be ideally is a hybrid player where you're kind of using your wrist and your arm at times to hit every single angle. But I know it's not like that for everybody. And because it's such an ambiguous thing to say, like no pro player usually says, I'm primarily an arm aimer or I'm primarily a wrist aimer. They're always some kind of hybrid player at times. It's a very ambiguous thing. So it's hard for you to dial in all of their settings and then be a wrist player, you know, to have like a super low sense and then say, oh, well, I only play with my wrist because I put on a little mouse pad the size of a napkin. There's things that these spreadsheets and websites don't account for, and that's one of them. You also might not play on the same hardware as your favorite players. This is a Zowie FK2. It's a pretty small mouse, and even if you do play on the same mouse as some of your favorite players, you might not grip the mouse the same way. Some people use palm grip, some people use a little fingertip grip, some people use something in between, which is more like a claw, right? Which kind of in a way determines how fast you move, you know, how you track, how you feel on the hardware itself, and how you feel on the mouse. It's all of these little things put together that make the way that you play the game significantly different from how they play the game physically. And that's why you can't just copy their settings. That's all physical, right? Let's talk about the mental aspect. To do that, I'm gonna hop in the game real quick. This is by far the most important reason why you can't just go around copying settings. It's because you inherently have a bias or muscle memory in you. If you've played any amount of Valorant or you've played any other FPS games, whether you played CSGO, Apex, whatever it is, you have some muscle memory of what sensitivity range you like to play in. Me, for example, I think on CSGO I played at 1.7 for many years. So when I came to Valorant, I converted it and it was 0.534. But generally, I now play down at 0.4, which is kind of weird, right? You cut it down a little bit. And I don't really know where I'm comfortable at, but it's somewhere within the register of 0.4 to 0.534, which means if I go and I look at the pro settings and I see, I don't know, TenZ or Scream or somebody's playing down at 0.2. Oh, I changed scene, sorry. If I'm playing down at 0.2, it's not in my register. It's not my muscle memory. This would be overriding so much work that I've already had. And you might say, well, my muscle memory isn't very good up here, right? So maybe I do want to make a drastic change. The thing is, if you are comfortable here, you can train yourself much easier because you're already used to playing at this level, right? You can go and do drills and do Kovacs and all that stuff, and I think you'll have a much easier time staying in a range where you're comfortable. Maybe you'll adjust it from, I don't know, 0.534 to 0.50. That's a much better adjustment to maybe make if you feel like you need to than going from 0.5 to 0.2 because Scream plays on it. That's not to say there will never be a reason for you to make a drastic change. If you're playing on 4 sensitivity at 1600 DPI, then yes, maybe you want to bring it down a lot. But if you're comfortable at that level, stick to it. That's all I'm really trying to say here, is stick to the sensitivity that is comfortable for you and change it for the right reasons. Not because the little spreadsheet told you that Scream is playing on a certain sensitivity. Change it for the right reasons. And when you do find one that's comfortable, even if you feel like you're not performing well in the moment, but it feels comfortable to you, stick with it. 30 days, a week, whatever. I know that's a long time. 30 days is a long time, maybe a week. Stick with it. It'll take a little bit of time for muscle memory to grow, but I assure you, staying at one sensitivity that might not be the most optimal and growing into it is much better than changing it every single game. There's a lot more things we could talk about, resolution, refresh rate, stuff like that, but let's just keep it simple. Physically, you are not the same. Physically, you do not move the same. You are built different, right? Everybody's built different. And so don't try and copy somebody else's settings just because you feel like it's the most optimal thing in the world. If it was the most optimal thing in the world, everybody would be playing on the same sensitivity, but that's just not the case. And I'm not making this video to call any new players out or call people out for changing their sense all the time. I just went through it when I played Counter-Strike, and there's a whole new generation of players coming through now that are going through it with Valorant. So any wisdom I can implore on you, I hope you can take and use. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, and I'll talk to you again very soon.